We're on Mecha base as well, which means you wonder if we'll be seeing some Reaper, and Little Rex says yes, yes you are.
There's plenty of room for brawling to take place here. Reaper and Mei is the combo where you can do a decent amount. You isolate a member with that Mei wall, and then Little Rex walks in with his Reaper to claim that kill. On the other end, Far East Society opting for the double sniper entry.
Double sniper is going to be interesting because you do get a nice little kill box around this point, but you also don't get the same long open sight lines as you might on other maps. In fact, Red and Evil already down as Global Esports, just kind of dogpiled onto this position. You don't have good spots for the snipers to sit back and fire from.
And maintaining that high ground position is so important for Far East Society. They're getting flanked right now. This could end up with a lot of kills.
Little Rex just kind of strolling around to the other side. Now the Brawl sort of makes its way down to the point though, and the tanks are starting to bear the brunt of it. Satchok going to go down, but that is a trade. Red and Evil having respawned, making his presence firmly felt. The D-Mech on Xenofly getting confirmed by him as well. Very nicely done. Able to snatch that health pack to stay alive as Faith was trying to run him down, then gets the headshot on Faith. And there you go, with Red and Evil in the mix, Far East Society absolutely slam dunked that fight.
That was like 4 or 5 kills just going the way of Red and Evil. Once the dust starts to settle there and members are very low, you have teams where they just don't have a lot of players still alive. Red and Evil's taking the 1v1s. You have Faith, who is trying to go for this 1v1. Luke, who's trying to get out alive. Neither of them make it. Far East Society, we talk about maintaining high ground control. Well, Red and Evil did that as soon as he came back.
Very aggressive maneuver there by Luke, but he actually finds himself a sitting duck there in this, as described, kill box that Far East Society now have. Now that they're in control of the point itself, this is exactly what they want. This is their kind of game plan. Now Faith going down, they can start piling the pressure onto Little Rex and Kim Q-Tae. Dragon Strike as well for good measure to force any remaining members out from the fight. Not the most kills you would maybe be hoping for in this fight, but it is still more percentage.
It's going to be a quick reset for Global Esports here as well, losing a few members, getting a Dragon Strike out. And now Global Esports get to walk back in with finally a ultimate advantage. This is the moment they've been waiting for. You are expecting a turnaround on the cap for this particular push. If they can't get it here, this might be the 100-0.
Yeah, Luke not quite able to be as sneaky as he'd hoped, but that's a huge catch actually. Finding Fearless means no res. Also, the supercharger destroyed before they can get too much value. Nice find of Kim Q-Tae actually. That's an environmental kill. It also helps remove a big ultimate. Xeon Flux as well means Far East Society have actually traded relatively evenly. Arrows has only just gone down here. Now though, Little Rex picking up 2 with the Death Blossom, and that's a bit of an ouch for Far East Society.
This is about the time when Global Esports are now doing a bit of stock take. 2 ultimates still available. Spent 2 to take this point away. Death Blossom successful, backed up by the sound barrier. And up against a team of Far East Society, usually you'd think, okay, Death Blossom not going to do too much here, but there's no Brigade, there's no Roadhog. At best, there will be a defense matrix. It's not even an ice wall because there's no Mei being run by Far East Society. So Global Esports now attempting to hold on to this point. Very quick double kill.
Yeah, environmental kills on both of those actually, but that is for what it's worth. Bubble Kitty committing the Dragon Strike. Not so sure about that. Maybe that's because the swap's coming out here. They do find Luke late in the fight as their respawns are coming in, so they have an opening.
The only pick I would like to see Lil Rex potentially go on here is a Tracer if this Reaper is not going to get the value eventually. And the Global Esports though, still comfortable at least for the time being, and that's going to be another pick going their way.
Yeah, Bubble Kitty just taking too long up there, way too easy to collapse on him as well. And now the environmental kills coming in again, the exact same kind of deal. Far East Society, they're going for a rotation that's leaving them exceedingly vulnerable to the Wrecking Ball and Lucio.
And Luke even making out alive there, cheeky plays to make sure he slings back on top. And Far East Society now just struggling, like you mentioned, to make it back to the point they're being intercepted mid-rotation. And in a few percentage points time, Global Esports is going to be able to equalize here, 72 on both ends.
Also allowed them to charge up some more ultimates. That combined with Far East Society making a swap here is a bit brutal. But the one they had available was the Nano Boost. They throw it on Red and Evil freshly on this Hanzo. He picks up 2 kills and a lot of damage on Faith there. It is Fearless who confirms the kill, but it means now Red and Evil already has a Dragon Strike available, and that's on top of them. Absolutely steamrolling back onto this point.
And again, another 4 kills going his way, confirms one into Luke, who was frozen as well by Bubble Kitty, his teammate, and now Far East Society in a pretty decent spot. 91% on the side of Global Esports, but control going the way of Far East Society, who do also have 3 ultimates of their own. They must shut down Lil Rex the next time he comes through, because if Death Blossom can confirm a few kills, if you can now put a Mei wall up into one.
Tossing the self-destruct forward. Oh, okay, so supercharging a few, but that ice wall is brutal. Red and Evil barely staying alive. He at least trades 1 before he goes down, but this team is a sitting duck up here, and they keep trying to make this same play when they're in control of the point. Sit on this high ground, it probably is going to be it with the regrab coming through. They keep getting walled up, keep getting forced into the line of fire of Global Esports' abilities, and Far East Society are finding themselves flattened and also very one-dimensional, not seeming like they had any other ways to approach the fights while in control of the point. And so Mecha Base goes the way of Global Esports.
Global Esports as well, just pushing in with that self-destructive claims, the supercharger, etc. You think probably not too bad at this point. At the same time, Global Esports use that opportunity to push even further, just walk on into Far East Society, clean up the members, too many kills too quickly, find themselves at a 1-0. Not in terms of a lead, you have to look at percentage differences there. They weren't hugely ahead of Far East Society, so still a close game by any means. And for Far East Society, expecting a bit of a bounce back now onto Sanctuary.
Now also looking to make some changes here. Global Esports, both teams in fact still favoring this Reaper right now. Red and Evil is also going to be over onto the Sombra, so a bit of a change in tack for Far East Society, also with the tank line as well.
Let's also remember this is a bit of a Faro map, so a team may decide to go onto that if they're seeing that it's going to be a lot of Reapers onto the field. Global Esports also still have this Wrecking Ball instead of a Winston that Sachok is going to be playing instead as we head into this first brawl. Red and Evil,
that's
trouble.
Yeah, finding that translocator, and they had eyes on Red and Evil just before that. I bet you that kill on Red and Evil is partially because he knew he couldn't translocate out, or suddenly found he couldn't translocate out. That being said, the trades are starting to come through now. Little Rex finds 3 before finally going down. Sorry, 2, with the other one confirmed by Xenofly. That freeze coming out from Kim Yute to help DMEC Aros eventually finish him off as well. Means that Global Esports have just barely edged out the better end of most of these trades, but the skirmish is still not done.
Should be an early cap coming through. You can start to see that tick up now. Sachok is going to make 1 kill go his way. And Far East Society actually going to come in pretty strong. They're getting a decent number of picks now.
Seeing they managed to stick around on the point with Fearless. They knew they had some respawns coming in. They hadn't got completely wiped out, and now an EMP plus a Coalescence. Sure, you got to commit ultimates to make it work, but it means you prevent that early cap for Global Esports for one thing, and you're going to actually secure it yourself.
Now Global Esports are going to be coming back. Okay, expenditure on the side of Far East Society means banking up on the side of Global Esports instead. We talked about Coalescence. Well, that's still available on the side of Global Esports when they do return, when the game returns after the pause as well. So we'll hopefully have some issues sorted out there. But so far...
Yeah, don't use the pause to go and like make a sandwich or anything. You had a 30-minute break to do that, so stay in front of your computer screen the entire time.
What if you weren't hungry during the 30 minutes? But you are now, for some reason. Like,
then tough. Sorry, you got to plan better.
The Reaper maze come through, it just... I don't know, makes you feel some sort of way. And, well, that definitely wasn't a lot of time to do too much.
Failing to plan is planning to fail. Far East Society, though, planning to succeed here. Coming up close to some ultimates, but not quite on them just yet. Sound barrier especially going to be very important against what Global Esports are bringing to bear.
And I'm really looking at the DPS side of Kim Yute and Red and Evil. Those are the 2 members that are playing sort of opposite picks here that can have quite a lot of impact on both ends of Blizzard. Will be coming through early.
Yeah, sort of in a bit of a weird spot, but that's 2 picked up on the retreating members of Far East Society. That's super brutal. And they were coming into those important ultimates. If it weren't for that, that's a really unfortunate loss there.
And they still get to keep the Coalescence as well. Global Esports holding on to also is going to be the Death Blossom. Far East Society get pushed out very quickly. However, Fearless does drop that sound barrier.
Yeah, they decide they still want more of this. They need to actually make kills happen, though, to make that count. They do find one on Little Rex. That takes a big ultimate off the table as well. They've now lasted out the Coalescence from Xenoflux, and suddenly it's only Faith with the sound barrier. This has also been Far East Society in possession of the point the entire time. So this second win that they've managed to find here has really sailed them a long way forward.
And this is the second time now that Global Esports comes close to capping that point. You can see that's a white circle nearly making that full rotation around, and they still had ultimates to lean into. Sound barrier could have been used by Faith. Lorax going down is really the catalyst for Global Esports failing to complete that cap there. A Death Blossom could have been used in conjunction with that sound barrier, and they would have confirmed that cap for sure. Far East Society now going to be looking pretty themselves. EMP in hand, 83% and counting up. This EMP might just confirm the round.
This is very much a final fight sealer, and honestly, by the time Lorax is unhacked, oh man, that's Nicely timed, at least on that one, but Little Rags only getting the one with the Death Blossom. Not the most ideal thing. Actually, they find Arrow's mech as well, which leaves them exposed. So perhaps the work now has been done, and this one should be a cap. I don't see Far East Society really leaning into these ultimates to try and keep this one alive. They also don't need to, because they can just charge up ultimates and find one last fight to win this.
And great counter there as well. We do now see Sound Barrier plus Death Blossom coming in. Can't really stop Lil Rax for too much here. Red and Evil has to land a hack and has to land the EMP on the Reaper. For that to happen, Coalescence coming through. Should be from both sides.
Now, Supercharger, though, is the difference maker here. That coming out from Luke really gives Far East Society pause, and the few members that are stuck in the firing line, even as they were able to take out the Supercharger, the damage had realistically been done.
This is where you can start to lean into alt rotations for Global Esports, where you just want to fight with a couple, still have a Supercharger plus the Blizzard coming through to play as well. Self-destruct is going to need to do quite a bit in that next engagement, because once again, we're looking at EMP. This time there's not going to be a sound barrier counter from Fate, so Global Esports have to split properly. They have to force the issue quite quickly as well by using self-destruct in an aggressive way.
You have to imagine, though, if things go right for Far East Society, then this ought to be the one. And Red and Evil's in position. There it goes down. That gets all 6. That's absolutely abominable. It is Red and Evil the first casualty of the fight, but I imagine most of the rest of them are going to be on the side of Global Esports. Don't want to speak too soon, though. Arrows does at least get D-Max, and now Self-Destruct finishes him off. Plus those support ultimates for Global Esports to lean into. Far East Society have managed to find the cap, and among that, Sound Barrier does not quite save Bubble Kitty. Iris coming close to a Coalescence has to commit it as soon as it's available, because Sadchuk was starting to get low, and they haven't really got many kills on Global Esports. In fact, it's the other way around. Global Esports are the ones starting to clean up.
The problem here is that Far East Society were able to get a counter cap in the middle of that fight, which leaves Global Esports still sitting on 60-ish, now approaching 70%. So this could have been them now approaching 90%, but they lost a lot of extra progression due to the fact that Far East Society snuck that one in there. And we still have a few more ultimates coming into play for that next fight. Luke, Kim Butte, Lil Rags about ready to go, and they need to win this one because this will now be the final fight.
And Global Esports are well and truly favored coming into it. Nice isolation on Arrows. D-Max, Self-Destruct won't be able to find any kills here, and not going to be getting back in the mech either. That is a brutal start already to what is a brutal battery of ultimates for Global Esports. Now 2 with Death Blossom. It's already over, you feel. 99-99, so once again an extremely close stage, but it feels like when it's mattering the most, Far East Society are falling short of the mark.
And this is with a lot of blunders coming through from from Global Esports early on, where they again failed to camp twice. Huge lead in terms of objective time for the side of Far East Society that could have been capitalized on, but unfortunately, you know, in the middle there, we talk about the final couple of engagements there, the ones that Global Esports did end up winning. Okay, to even get there in the first place, they had to play their ultimates pretty well. Sound Barrier, Death Blossom, May, Blizzard as well. They had to survive against the EMP. Okay, got the Sound Barrier from the previous fight for that one. You have to also be in a position where you even lost a point in the middle of one of your fights. That's extra catch-up time. That's an extra fight now for Far East Society. I feel like for FES, they had so many extra points where you know they had the game in their favor. They had points failed to be capped by Global Esports. They had extra time given to them, and that just wasn't enough. That's the sad part.
I also feel like there is an element of this that is the performance on Mecha Base, and it wasn't that it was bad, it was just that it was one-dimensional. Like, very quickly, Global Esports went, okay, if they're just going to stand up there, then we can cut, like, we can split them in half with the May Wall. We can force them into the line of fire of things like Coalescence and Dragon Strike. Like, if you're going to stand on a very linear position, then expect those extremely linear abilities to get thrown your way. And if you don't have good ways of getting out of the line of fire, then inevitably individuals are going to get picked off. That kept happening to Far East Society, and you sort of go, was there no other way really for them to approach that? And it just feels like a bit of a shame. It feels like they could have had a better performance on Mecha Base, and when you consider it was, what, 98% to 99%, a better performance might well have been them at least winning that.
And that's twice over. I think both of these rounds, you could say Far East Society maybe tweaked it a little bit. They could have had that round. Global Esports, if they kind of faulted a little bit more. And again, you have to look at Sanctuary and say, well, I think they faulted quite a few times, and that still wasn't quite enough. You know, how many more mistakes, so how many more slight mishaps for Global Esports are required for Far East Society to kind of take this one through. So This was a close 2-0, you'd say, regardless. You score lines, cap percentages on both sides. We're neck and neck, so you'll give that to them, and you'll say, going into maps 2, 3, and further, I am expecting further here. Far East Society should be able to look at being able to turn things around.
You'd certainly like to think so. I think one thing I will say is my overarching fear of them like totally struggling with 2-2-2 has been mitigated. And look, even though they're lost here, like they look reasonably comfortable between Red Evil and Bubble Kitty. They've got some chops, right? They've got reasonable hero pools between them. They're able to at least run a lot of the staples of the current meta as formative as it may be. And a lot of that is on the fact that Red Evil has Sombra, Widow, and Hanzo in the repertoire. Those are 3 important picks. On the whole, they feel relatively comfortable, if ever so slightly behind Global Esports in the context of Control.
Control's over though. Next map coming up is going to be on Assault Paris, lined up, picked by the side of Far East Society. And what I'm feeling here is going into more Orisa gameplay, going into more Halt Hook combos with the Roadhog as well, which is something we haven't seen a lot of on that first map yet between these two teams. Again, they went for May Reaper as the strategy. You also have Far East Society leaning more into double sniper early, realizing maybe later on that wasn't the go on Sanctuary. Both teams basically mirrored each other. The EMPs and the Sombra plays weren't actually as effective, so maybe that was a key difference because May is a big factor in this 2-2 meta currently, and not playing that May and opting for Sombra instead didn't pay the dividends.
Yeah, it's a trade-off, right? And I mean, that's the thing. There are still some limitations here. Like, the fear is mitigated in as much as, like, they're not totally and utterly lost, but I do still think there are going to be some teething issues with Far East Society in the context of 2-2-2. And as we say, we're in playoffs. They don't exactly have a lot of space to work out those teething issues, but I think Paris is a sensible pick for them as well. Also, I think the real reason for them picking Paris, I don't know if you know this, but apparently in the Far East, by the Far East I actually mean specifically Japan, Paris is considered like, or France in general is like the pinnacle of like European exoticism. It's like when we think of Japan and we think of like wacky like Harajuku fashion and like, I don't know, things like that, we're like, Japan's so strange. They think that, but about France.
It's also got the we out of there, because really it's not me, it's definitely, I don't know, it might be you, but...
Yes.
There's no we. There's no we in thinking
There is
that.
no we.
I have not had those thoughts until just now that you put them there. I'm taking them out.
No problem. Notre Dame looking a little bit healthier in the future of Overwatch.
When the map was made before the thing happened.
But also, it's set after the thing happened, so you assume it's prepared, so it's like, it's perfect. They keep continuity.
Sometimes you don't repair it just to show it. It's a sign, you know?
Yeah.
It's a message.
Never forget. Anyway, Far East Society, this is a bit of a change of pace. So for one thing, Hon, formerly known as Look For You, is back in, so Bubble Kitty out, and so far not going to fully opt for dive here, but they do want to keep Hon on this Genji.
So we do have Orisa out for Luke here on that first defense, Fly on the Diva, so no hog combo here, and this is something that we saw, basically the same comp that Talon ran on Hollywood for Society, opting for a sort of dive.
Opting for a pause.
It's,
it could be Global Esports being the pause.
Could be me. Who knows?
They're like, hold on, I wasn't done looking at the scenery.
I'll tell you when I'm ready to unpause this one. It's an interesting comp because it's not quite dive, it's also got the Hanzo in there, so it's dive except for the Hanzo.
It's the Shimada brothers.
It is, and what's funny about that particular DPS duo is they don't necessarily pair that well. It's kind of like opposite styles of how they want to operate, because one, you do want to dive in, that's why you also have the Winston line up there as well. On the other hand, you kind of want to play far back, you want to play for spam with the Hanzo, so you got a little bit of both versus Bunker, where to beat Bunker, your two styles you play is either dive or spam. This way you got a little bit of both, but the fear is you might not have enough of one if you are opting for both at the same time.
What I at least do like about it potentially is you've got the likes of Red and Evil and arguably Satchok to sort of soften people up, get them low, that Hon could maybe finish off. And similarly, even you could have Red and Evil soften them up for Satchok to finish off, but the swap's going to come out anyway.
Now we're going to be playing full dive here, set up by the Invisible Sombra in the back line as well. First wall comes through.
I have to say I much prefer this, but Red and Evil did go on into Scout, changed off, and has now gone back on. So that is a little bit of time and potential ultimate charge lost, and that's significant. We're now actually 1 minute 15 into this map already.
And a lot of setup is required here. First of all, you got to get past that wall. Now you got to get a flank on. Losing your main tank's not a good idea, though.
Yeah, that immortality field is really brutal here, and that's the thing. Fiery Society were actually quite close if it weren't for that. They nearly had Xeon Flux. They were in a reasonable position, but then Xeon Flux gets in the immortality field, Satchok goes down, and like I said, it was already 1 minute 15 just to start that fight. We're nearly 2 minutes deep.
And it would have been amazing if Fearless made it out alive, but unfortunately going down late means later respawns, and we're not too close to important ultimates just yet. EMP is the main one you want to be looking at. Dragon Blade can still be shut down quite a decent bit versus Global Esports comp, even though there's no Transcendence. Faith now does have, of course, that amplification matrix up, as you would expect from Pixie on the patch.
And this just makes this rotation really difficult for for Fiery Society rather. And like I said, already 2 minutes deep before they make the second approach. And I feel like a bit of slowness at the start has kind of shot them in the foot a little bit. They're now starting to really hurt for time and not necessarily any better off than they were at the start of that rotation.
You can see a lot of damage being taken by Red and Evil as well, which just slows down the ult charge rate on that EMP. You'd like to see him at 100%, but every time he gets chunked out, he has to leave. We're looking at Fiery Society now. How do they want to stage this next dive in? Because Global Esports is still holding the same high ground and have not been moved at all.
This is also a slight note. Iris is not on Ana, so you don't have a Nano Blade combination. And that can be a significant change here, especially since you want to combo with an EMP, but that's an early bump actually onto Lil Rax, and they're taking it easy on committing these DPS ultimates, only just getting the Dragon Blade in now. Unfortunately, it's right in the middle of an immortality field. That is ill-advised there from Han. They might not need to commit this EMP just yet. They do decide to help secure the fight. I do think that's a sensible decision on the grand scale of things. So Fiery Society off the back of that. We'll finish off the rest of these kills. Late Dragon Strike coming out from Lil Rax. Might just be a swap there, but this will be the cap for Fiery Society.
And that was really whack because Lil Rax died super early. You even did see Xeon Flux being forced to use the Transcendence to try and keep him up. That was before the Dragon Blade came through from Han. The Dragon Blade ended up not being too efficient anyway because he couldn't find the kills, got caught up in a small room with a bunch of tanks he couldn't take down. And Fiery Society, outside of the Dragon Blade, still leaning into the EMP, still leaning into the other ultimates. Transcendence, again, out of the way, means they can confirm the damage eventually and confirm the cap. Now going into B, don't quite have a lot to snowball with. Self-destruct is going to find only the immortality field.
Satchok stays alive though. That's a really great sound barrier. Unfortunately, he ends up eventually going down with the Blizzard. This is also amplification matrix, so it's a lot of commitment here for Global Esports for what is so far a 1-to-1. You do expect it to start being more because they have more ultimates, but Coalescence has made that a bit difficult. Only now just getting the DMAC on Aros and finishing off Red and Evil and Iris. That ends up being an expensive fight for both teams, really, but that's better for Fiery Society because they had less ultimates at the start.
I think Global Esports actually, because they're now able to, they're probably going to be holding, first of all, onto most of the same heroes here. Fiery Society going to be making a couple of swaps, which is going to force, it's going to affect their economy somewhat. Lil Rex and Xeon Flux as well will be making a couple of changes, but with the full reset and now the entire snowball mitigated from the Fiery Society, pushing in after capping A. Global Esports have time to set up. Global Esports have time to now get those next ring of ultimates up. Faith especially is getting them very quickly.
This is now a bit of a slowdown point. Fiery Society, speaking of, they've only got 2 minutes here, so again, slowness has been quite costly for them on this map so far.
Fiery Society really need to do a lot of charging here to get the ultimates back in. Main walls coming out on both ends.
Oh, they're able to keep him alive, actually, and even find Kim Yute. That's really big, but that ends up being a trade. Still getting traded out here is actually, it's not Aros getting demaked, it was Fearless and Red and Evil going down just before that happened, but at any rate, the push does fall apart there for Fiery Society, and that's with what was otherwise a good first pick.
And you're still looking at the lingering effects of that previous fight, still going in the favor of Global Esports, but they got to keep the high ult charge on Faith, which he now converts into amplification matrix, which then the team can use to win the following fight, which just happened, and they're able to now also charge up the other ultimates that are missing. Fiery Society still not really looking too great just yet. They need to get equal value out of Fearless's own amplification matrix if they want to do some real damage on the point.
And with that amplification matrix, they should be able to finish charging up some of these other ultimates, a lot of which will be critical in this fight, especially Transcendence if they can get it against Kim Yu.
Good lockout.
That's huge. And that's happened so many times as they've made that approach. Someone's got trapped on the other side of that May wall. They got away with it last time, but still lost the fight. This time, they don't get away from that, and it precludes them from even assessing the fight.
Such as the difficulty of a pushing team where there's May on both ends. The defensive May gets a lot more initiative on how the walls are going to be set up because you're the team that has to rotate. The defense is already in position. They don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
You have to push into them. You're far more likely going to be split up. Now we're reaching 20 seconds remaining, and Far East Society have barely charged up the ultimates. The loss of that last fight is huge.
You can't even really rotate here. You just kind of got to go for it. Barrel for the points. You don't even have a Lucio who can just sort of dive on him for a touch.
One
Red
down.
Bull's already down. That's absolutely disgusting. And now the amplification matrix as they make the push. And the May wall is there. They do at least have a member on the point, but it's an isolated member as Aros is now frozen in midair, incredibly. But Transcendence in the mix there from Iris, unfortunately not able to collect all those members in it because they were frozen far apart from one another. This last-ditch self-destruct. It will also not even be a remake, I imagine, for Aros. No, it will not. So, 36.8% is all Far East Society will walk away with. And unfortunately, a lot of the slowdown on A and B just costing them dearly.
And I think that last fight went about as poorly for Far East Society as you could have hoped for, with your main damage dealer getting taken out straight away. No Hanzo for the team. That's a big whoopsie. Second to that, when you finally do drop in your amplification matrix, good wall placement by Kim Gu-tae.
Yeah.
He doesn't just put it in front of the matrix because otherwise your double damage bursts through that wall. He puts it in front of the matrix such that you can't put the damage through the matrix itself. You're hitting that wall without any damage boost. You're not going to take down that wall in any time soon. Far East Society just couldn't find anything there. Han got his Blizzard eaten as well, and Global Esports looked so comfortable on that B.
A little bit brutal there, I'd say, for Far East Society. Want to see them speed up the passage of play a little bit as well. Losing a whole minute on A, just deciding what composition to run, was already a little bit on the ridiculous side. They need to be faster than that. You don't have the same time as you used to on Assault. Look, it's only by a small margin, but you look at the difference it's ultimately made. This is a map they've been able to fully cap before. 36.8% now says otherwise.
The thing you have to look at here is if you're rolling onto B, a lot of teams will be swapping comps between A and B and looking how that snowball goes. If it's ineffective, okay, now you are making that fresh swap onto a bunch of new heroes on that new composition. But last patch, you had an extra minute to try and build those ultimates up. Without that extra minute, you could imagine the scenario. If Far East Society had one more minute here, yes, they lose that last fight, but they still save ultimates. They still come in, they finally have an ult advantage. But because that 1 minute is gone, they just don't have that time to build anything. Far East Society, now on their own defense, need to chunk a lot of time away from A to make sure that Global Esports are going to struggle on B as well.
I like the comp from Far East Society, though. It makes a lot of sense. Good pick potential, a lot of options. I also do quite like the Ana just adding that pick potential.
This is about as close as you can get to the 2-2-2 default. Again, the final support there, the flex support Iris, can choose between that or also Zenyatta as the option. So for Far East Society, this is about as standard as you can get for this patch in Global Esports.
Yeah.
Tracer, Sombra, flanking potential, double hint scan.
This is really brilliant from Global Esports. Just Luke on the drive-by there, along with Kim Yu-tae, is keeping them distracted. It's keeping them looking in all directions. And you feel like eventually someone is going to find an opening. That being said, Far East Society have been able to get some critical picks on DPSs. So nice play by Global Esports, but it doesn't quite pay off.
And I'll be honest, Red and Evil is the only member that really needs to be looking in other directions. Yeah, okay, you got Lil Rax and Kim Gu-tae on the flank, but one Hanzo is going to keep both those members busy.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the other team members still have to try and make this rotation. How does Faith and Xeon Flux get to this point? How does Xeon Fly walk around as well? You have three members that are still trying to push main, and the rest of Far East Society can deal with those guys, and they certainly did. Global Esports now going to be making a bit of a change. Lil Rax on the Reaper instead. Far East Society coming up to ultimates.
It's not like you're diving. It's not like you're keeping them looking one way while your Genji stabs them in the back or something. But at any rate, Global Esports do have some tools to make an approach with, especially if they can finish off this EMP. I like self-destruct as well. Really forces the positioning. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe they just stand right in the line of fire of it. That's an oops from Far East Society. A little bit tough to duck and cover from that one. Nice hook on Little Rags, but he's just going to fade the way out of there. No issues. And now just drilling the damage in, has the nano boost as well, gonna have no trouble piling shots in. As they say that, the whole hog throws a bit of a spanner in the works for him. Fiery Society, they've decided they want to draw a line in the sand here, and they could still lean on other ultimates.
Very good defensive play from Fire Society just to maintain sightlines, but they are losing control of the point. You can see Satchok trying to control that point himself, trying to put feet on. 2 ticks gone, and the third is coming soon.
That's a great minefield there, actually, from Luke, because Satchok was caught on one side of it with no support and still hacked out as well. You've got Aros on the other side of it, who has to just try and tank those mines if he wants to get in the fight. So nicely laid out there, and now 4.5 minutes to get just over a third.
And the problem here is you have a couple of late deaths, even later. Okay, Red Evil going down is a bit of a problem. Casino Fly is kind of slowing down Global Esports being forced to respawn and reset that mech, but eventually Global Esports, they should be piling onto this camp fairly soon. They got 2 support ultimates. If Kim Gute stays alive and does the damage, and EMP will be in the mix as well, the only thing they have to really be careful of is to dodge the Blizzard. And also Xenofly, if you can eat the Blizzard, that would be even better.
That is an option that they have. By the way, hacked out now is Han, so not the hottest start, and in that they decide to press the advantage. There you go, that's the target Lil Rex was honing it on, and with the nano boost as well, it's so easy to finish that off, and it feels like that is going to be all she wrote here for Global Esports. Looking to pick up the second map of the series now, 2-0. That's match point already. We might just have 2, 3, and 0 results tonight. Global Esports, they want to repeat their performance in the regular season. They want to end Fiery Society's dream here. They're going, no, we're the second best team right now.
Yep, that 3-2 wasn't a joke. The 3-2 victory in week 2 was not a coincidence. And this is astounding, because this is the kind of matchup now where if it is a 3-0, that would be a very one-sided series scoreline-wise compared to where the 2 teams have come from, compared to where the 2 teams enter the playoffs based on standings, match score, map differential. And now this is, I would say, still close. 2-0 on Busan. That was a close scoreline. We did note that. Paris was still fairly close, but you felt like, and this was also true in Busan, the fights that really mattered, the pushes that really mattered, the ones you needed to win, Global Esports won those.
That's the thing. It is a little bit unfortunate to say, but I honestly still feel like, in a big way, Fiery Society have suffered a little bit for 2-2-2 lock coming in. And it's not because they're incapable of playing the right roles for it. They're actually having not too much of an issue with that realistically. It's just that compared to what they were able to play in the regular season, they're just not as clean. The execution isn't right there. I feel like we're back looking at the Fiery Society we saw in weeks 1 and 2 of the regular season before they really hit their stride. And that was actually the time at which Global Esports last played Fiery Society. And once again, in the playoffs, you don't have that leeway that they had in the first 2 weeks of the regular season.
I also don't think Global Esports are necessarily doing anything too wild where, okay, there's just the one crazy player, like a Patapan-esque kind of guy, just completely demolishing your entire team. That's not really happening. It feels like Global Esports, as we've seen throughout the majority of the season, it's decent team play, well coordinated, well executed. Already saw them get over any sort of 2-2-2 problems yesterday. Teething issues are gone. 24 hours later, still looking pretty hot, and now 2-0 up in the lead. We go to halftime, and after this break, we'll see if Fire Society can make that run back or not. Reverse sweep or nothing. See you after this.